something that knits us all together.
Just so it's clear up front, the Capitol and its people are crazy, disillusioned, and if not full-blown evil, teetering very close to the edge.
What defines your personal signature?
Other than that beautiful beard, right? I mean, it's not a beautiful beard win, but it is pretty. I'm just saying that I wouldn't leave you behind on a water planet if it came to it, that's all.
Your personal signature.
Ha! Good answer.
I hear the lamentation of the women.
Hey, it's the new Mystique girl. I bet you won't turn into the most beloved and highest paid actress in all of Hollywood to then only be turned on after one rude comment. A quick pan around District 12, some might say too quick given how shaky the camera is, and we're given pretty much all we need to know. They're poor, like licking the fat off squirrel bones poor. In case you didn't understand that, that's Katniss checking to see if she's been winded. She now realizes she's upwind from the deer. Though you should never dry fire your bow like that, I'll assume it wasn't a full draw, we're getting some clues and visual exposition about Katniss's hunting proficiency. The main reason I bring it up, and will continue to bring it up, is because the book is written in first person, so the temptation and really the easiest way to give us information would have been narration, which they summarily avoid. Startling technology. It's like a jarring anachronism that gives this movie a unique feel and starkly contrasts the districts with the Capitol.
Cut out our tongues or worse.
A little Avox shadowing. They never talk about the Avox? Oh. Avox referencing.
I'm never having kids.
It's actually surprising that anyone would still be having kids, but it's more proof of the Capitol's cycle of abuse. You need kids to work in whatever trade your district does to provide for your family. Plus, what are the odds, right?
How many times did your name in today?
42.
If I hadn't been paying attention, that may have confused me. But I am, and since Katniss said to Prim,
It's your first year, Prim. Your name's only been in there once. They're not gonna pick you.
my genius brain deduced that the older you get, the more times your name gets put in the bowl. And if you've read the book, you know you can also trade your name for food.
That's a mockingjay.
How much?
You keep it.
Ooh, woman, you don't even know what you started. Also, the mayor's daughter Madge is looking really haggard.
Laid something out for you, too. Okay.
Putting on a brave face.
And as long as you have it, nothing bad will happen to you.
Technically, since she was picked, then someone volunteered to take her place, the pin worked. No one really likes shaky cam. I mean, it makes you feel sick, you can never focus on anything, but of all the times it's used sort of lazily, it actually makes sense in this film. It creates an uneasy tension throughout the reaping and adds to the absolute terror these kids would be going through. And the close-up shots of Effie's caked-on makeup shaking all around her perfect Capitol face create a strange grotesqueness. And Elizabeth Banks is an attractive woman, so it's no small feat to give us the impression she'd chew your eyebrows off.
And then came the peace, hard-fought, sorely won. A people rose up from the ashes, and a new era was born.
Man, talk about the victors writing history.
I volunteer! I volunteer! I volunteer as tribute!
Self-sacrifice, saving your sister, standing up to the man. I always know it's coming, but it still chokes me up. Adding to the realism of the documentary-style shaky cam, there's also a very uncomfortable amount of silence. No real score leading up to this point. And then James Newton Howard's amazing score finally does come in to punctuate the district's act of defiance and support for her sacrifice in one motion.
Don't take any extra food from them. It isn't worth putting your name in more times.
Well, would you look at that? You don't even have to read the book to know what she's talking about. This also gives the whole story a purgy feel as well. The poorer you are, the higher the odds you'll be reaped. And now we're given the opposite of the reaping atmosphere. All score, no sound effects, giving the entire scene the ethereal, out-of-body feeling they're no doubt experiencing.
You get to enjoy all of this.
Everyone's hard on Effie, and for good reason really, but other than rebelling, which, look at her, what is she supposed to do? It's her job. And can you blame her for trying to make these kids' last days enjoyable? I mean, they're already crying. Talk about a crappy job. I realize she has no clue what they would actually care about, and this probably makes their last days worse, thinking about their poverty-stricken families choking on squirrel bones. I promise, last time I bring up squirrel bones.
Congratulations. Embrace the probability of your imminent death.
And speaking of people in crappy situations, what kind of tortured life does Haymitch have? We learn about his past later in the series, but had Katniss not volunteered, he'd be staring at Prim and the sheep-faced boy right now. Then he's supposed to invest emotion in them when he knows they're gonna die? If he wasn't an alcoholic, I'd be surprised. And even if he wasn't, it's fair to say that he may have just started drinking this day to deal with it all. Here's another example of simple visual exposition. Katniss understands that they will be competing against each other, and she already feels like Peeta is trying to gain an edge over her. You can hear her thoughts without hearing her actual thoughts.
Marmalade.
That is mahogany.
Wood species lessons. Cleanliness.
I'm sorry that this happened to you.
Leave it to Lenny Kravitz to be the only decent human in the Capitol. I'm definitely a fan of this technology, but you can go right ahead and delete that busy street setting for me. Can you imagine the freak out you'd have the first few mornings waking up to that? Whoa, that's Eddie's friend Chloe from The Path. Being female in Hollywood, where you go from 17 to your mid-30s in 5 years. I hurt my ankle. I think I'm gonna have to sit this year out.
You might have a better chance of winning if somebody comes after you with a knife.
I have no chance of winning. None. All right?
Honesty. Soggy burnt bread. A career showing off montage is the fastest way to end up peeing your pants.
I used to decorate the cakes down at the bakery.
You might be thinking, who are you baking cakes for? And then, if you've watched the movie so far, you'd hopefully say, oh, yeah, right, for the Capitol, since every district is just there to serve the Capitol. What did this 5'6", 120-pound 14-year-old kid just mess up to currently have worse odds than the 4'8", 65-pound 12-year-old? Haha, it's funny because someday you may actually need to stab your sister. Or better yet, maybe we'll make you both careers so you'll have to. See, that's called character growth. Hope is a powerful drug, as Snow points out later. Haymitch finally has someone to believe in after years of sorrow. So this makes perfect sense. Number 1, she'd obviously be nervous. Number 2, it's not her bow, which matters more than you might think. Number 3, it's metal with aluminum arrows, while she shoots wood with wood. It would actually probably take her a few shots to learn the bow. Get it? 'Cause they're all pigs.
Thank you for your consideration.
Politeness.
Thanks for your consideration. Genius.
Genius.
Compliments.
I thought they hated me.
They must have liked your guts.
To cat.
Or wanted to put a target on your back. Just saying.
I have to say, my heart stopped. Did any of you experience this as well?
Gotta give it up for Stanley Tucci. Dude was born to play a disillusioned talk show host in a dystopian young adult future.
What the hell was that?
Manners.
Priorities.
I just want them to change me.
A great conversation between these two is Katniss is finally starting to believe he's a decent guy and might actually care for her. And going forward in the series, it's amazing that changing Peeta is the one thing they do accomplish in spades.
30 seconds.
I mean, seriously, this isn't something we can even comprehend. The absolute terror. J-Law sells it masterfully, and it still gives me a pit in my stomach. Man, I forgot there was actual kid blood in this. It's no battle royale, but still. And here's our second reason shaky cam was used deliberately. It absolutely adds to the chaos of the bloodbath, but also makes the blood harder to focus on, since, you know, kids, man. And James Newton Howard is a genius. The tension, the fear, the adrenaline, it's all captured without a single sound effect. Just visuals and Howard's beautiful score. Well, that's one way to get away fast. Slinky, for when you get bored running for your life and avoiding death at every turn. I guess you could use it as a garrote. Garrett? A trap she never uses. Oh, wait. A little ironic that Snow's analogy for Katniss was a spreading fire, and he instructed Seneca to
Contain it.
and Seneca chose a forest fire to try to contain her. It might be confusing that this parachute comes from Haymitch, but you'll notice the scene right before he's actually schmoozing with the Richies to pay for the medicine. So they pay, he sends.
Claudius, I think those are tracker jackers.
Here's another way we get some exposition without hearing Katniss's thoughts. The commentators are a great addition to explain things like tracker jackers. Brutal. That's a brutal way to go out. Just ask my girl Veda. See, I would have said she should have just waited up in the tree until the tracker jackers were gone, but yeah, the hallucinations definitely would have thrown her to her death. So, good call.
Get out of here, go! What are you doing? Go!
Saving your friend, who's having a terrible trip. Solid evidence as to why Katniss is the head of the house, and she is the way she is.
No, that's okay.
Here.
Sharing your squirrel bones with your new friend, or Grusling or whatever. Anti-stormtrooper aim. Also a bit of a callback to when she hit the apple to get that 11. In the books, Katniss talks about how much Rue reminds her of Prim, and it's the reason she just about loses it when Rue dies. In the movie, they make a point of showing her sing to Prim in the beginning after her nightmare. Now she sings that same song to Rue, nailing that connection home for the viewers. Now she realizes she can win. She can kill when she has to, even without thinking. And now she gives that act of defiance back to the people that inspired her.
I'm not good at saying something.
Then come here.
There's an interesting dynamic between these two at this point that the film does another great job of showing rather than telling. Peeta Pocket clearly has feelings for her, but she still seems unsure if he's just playing the game. Katniss is clearly playing the game, but he doesn't seem to know if she's sincere or not. Still, these moments are performed really well by both of them. You might be thinking, but doesn't Katniss outweigh this girl by like 20 pounds? Shouldn't that matter? Well, that's why this knife doesn't go directly into her face. But if you've been combat training your whole life, size doesn't matter against a novice, or even sometimes an expert. Just ask Hoist Gracie. I know this is a serious moment, but bad lip reading forever ruined it. I can only see Katniss making goat noises. I mean, at some point, strength and weight do matter. But had he not caught her off guard, she still probably could have defended herself. Also, that's what you get for torturing that poor iguana.
Okay, I'll take the bow. I'm just kidding.
Life and death situation jokes. Hugging. So I get that the dog finale is a little goofy, but to be honest, to go full mutation may have been pushing it a little too far for the viewing audience. It still works. People who read the book know the truth, and the ignorant aren't totally freaked right the heck out right now. And the build up to this scene and then payoff is one of the most tense sequences in the film. Ha! Pita Bread finally gets to show off his strength.
Anyway, I always was, right? I didn't know that till now.
For all the people stuck in their echo chamber, to use a 2017 catchphrase about a 2012 film, Cato is one of the few to actually break through, and maybe start to wonder if he's actually just a victim. And since the dogs clearly attacked him, the game makers don't care about him either. Which, no matter how much of a jerkface he was, he's still a kid. It's just a genuinely sad moment. Smart idea from Pita, since shooting Cato in the face would have made him drag Pita down with him. And a little heartbreaking brutality. And then some mercy.
One of us has to die. They have to have their victor.
No, they don't. Why should they?
This is a turning point for Katniss. She starts the film telling Pita,
I just can't afford to think like that.
because she needs to go home and that's all that mattered. Now she's seeing the bigger picture. Even though I think Katniss was smart enough to know they're not going to let them martyr themselves, she's still taking the risk that they'd either let them die or just kill them both for breaking the rules. Little did the Capitol know that she would probably be less effective as a dead martyr. La-di-da, no one's ever gonna make me kill myself. Oh. Also, bet you wish you were still filming plastic bags, huh, Ricky? Also comeuppance. I forgot how crucial the score was in the emotion of this film. Does this redeem Last Airbender even more? I feel like it does. Yeah, my wife is still Team Gale. This is Arcade Fire? How did I not know that? Arcade Fire is always a win. Gotta give a win to the Civil Wars as well. Apparently I need to get the Hunger Games soundtrack. I'll start with the metaphor I think Collins was taking a stab at. This movie is a bit of an indictment of capitalist economies and maybe more specifically the American dream in that it's supposed to be available to everyone.
May the odds be ever in your favor.
That statement is absolutely oxymoronic as it pertains to these 24 kids. The odds can only be in the favor of one person. The system is literally designed that way. And Cato finally realizes the system is rigged when the dogs come out. Even though he's the best choice, the odds were actually in his favor. He could still be killed at a moment's notice.
And may the odds be ever in your favor.
And it's nailed home even harder when there's just two of them left standing. It's objectively an oversimplification of capitalism, and the only solution Collins really offers going forward is anarchy. But the symbolism is in there if you look for it. Outside of that, the whole premise and setup of the story and universe is very solid. The idea that the simple act of volunteering as a member from an outlying district would spark a revolution makes perfect sense. It's the catalyst that brings Haymitch around and gives him hope after what we can only assume has been years of depression. It's the reason Cinna makes sure Katniss is noticed, and right from this moment she inspired the disenfranchised, which, whether she knew it or not, then spurred her own rebellion on. There's some pretty in-your-face satire meant to hold a mirror up to our own gluttonous pig faces that I'm sure not one person missed. For the record, I've been saying we're only a few years away from gladiators in the Colosseum for, well, years. Honestly, it's hard to tell if this series is more a condemnation of the 1% and corporations or a tyrannical government. 6 and 1, Collins sort of combines them. Either way, they illustrate the grotesqueness of the decadence with nausea-inducing perfection. Our culture's desensitization to the horrors around us is only further dulled by our obsession with things like reality TV, a medium that we all know is mostly faked and staged. So flipping back and forth between reality and reality can blur the lines of reality. It gets to the point where we just accept the atrocities of our world as immutable or worse necessity.
You root for your favorites, you cry when they get killed. It's sick.
Gail.
If no one watches, then they don't have a game.
Are we as sick as these fluorescent freaks yet? Hopefully not. But every time I go back to this story, I feel the mirror and it makes me question my sympathies. Even more so with the books, obviously. My wife and I were both finishing these books on vacation right around the time the actors had been announced. Why were we reading books meant for tweens in our mid-20s? That's not really the point, is it, you judgmental viewer you? We were a little put off by the casting of Mystique. She's very different from the physical description of Katniss. But she does capture her spirit and fire. She always manages to come off like she's playing dress-up in the Capitol. You can tell when she's acting. And as I've pointed out already, she manages to telegraph Katniss's inner monologue without saying a word. And I give her some credit for embodying a lot of what makes Katniss a great, newish character. I'm not saying tough as nails emotionally shut off female leads or anything new. The Brides, Ripleys, and Sarah Connors have been kicking butt for decades. And even now, looking at it from a post-Rey and Jyn world, it's not like Katniss broke the mold. But partnering up with the mostly ineffectual Peeta adds a new level to the archetype. You know, Peeta Pocket, the kid from Pan Am, who bakes bread and then saves Katniss's life with it. Bread and circuses, anyone? You know, not to be confused with the weed, I mean tributes that are part of like their A. And Hutcherson plays the part really well. Elizabeth Banks was exactly how I pictured Effie, and Woody Harrelson didn't have to try too hard to play an indifferent drunk. When he comes around, he has a warmness to him as well. Stanley Tucci obviously stole the show, but Donald Sutherland really makes you hate his guts even in the short time he was on screen. People are always going to have issues with movies that are trying to set up a sequel. And I totally get that. Stop trying to take all my money. But in the era of the adaptation, it's more difficult. Especially when the books themselves are written to set up a sequel or even specifically a planned series to begin with. But Hunger Games actually tells a complete story, albeit open-ended. And they started the short-lived young adult dystopian kill-the-kids genre trend, or at least popularized them getting adapted to film. It makes you wonder what the next big trend might be. Probably something with the elderly, I'm thinking. Or since we're all about nostalgia these days, how about adapting some classics? Where's my Catcher in the Rye movie? Oh, it's too offensive. Yeah, you're probably right. Well, next week is only an adaptation in the way that everything is an adaptation.
Come on. Maybe you should throw the sword.